Welcome to Belmont Poetry Night. I'm Monica Korde, your host and the Poet Laureate of Belmont, California. We meet on the third Tuesdays of every month to celebrate the spoken word as makers, listeners, and admirers of poetry. We come with featured guests and an open mic, inviting readers of all ages. After gathering for several years at our favorite physical venue, the Belmont Library, since the pandemic, our thriving poetry circle has transitioned to this virtual space, and I'm grateful this allows me to welcome poets and listeners from across the globe. It's always lovely to see you all. Going with our poetry night practice, please share in the chat where you are joining me from. And thanks for being here and zooming in. Uh, Talking about last year, while I was curating the October Poetry Night, I had the idea of featuring a trio of poets, which started as a celebration of three of our beloved local voices and published poets. Some of them are here with us tonight. And this year, I'm thrilled to continue the tradition by shining a spotlight on the powerful and inspiring voices of our local youth, our youth poets. Over the past few years, I've had the pleasure of hearing and featuring many youth poets, and while each brings a uniquely diverse voice, they all share a common thread, and they possess not just a deep sensitivity, but also a steadfast commitment to using their words to make a positive impact on the community. Tonight's Poetry Spotlight is on Voices of Youth, and I'd like to open the evening by sharing an inspiring poem by one such 16-year-old voice who said, "Claim poetry for yourself and know that if you choose to wield it, you may well change the world." That's youth poet Meera Das Gupta, and her poem is called Remembrance, after Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. The poet remembers a sonnet turned storm, the day survival became the sharp melody of hope, soaring like the ashes of an urn, forsaking your wicked eulogy at the door. We rewrite the lines. I remember painting sun rays onto my skin where your scars have begun to fade. In the smoke, I send my tortured twin. In the sky is where I remain. We realize our lies. The poet remembers an ocean blooming from dawn, how seeds violently thrown at the wind can still yawn wide and well into the shining unknown. We repair these lights. I remember the spines you stole and the bones you played when you tried to unfold my unlatched mouth beneath your blade. How the poet too remembered my wetted words. You will not storm, you will not scar, you will not shine. We reclaim our lives. You remember to fear the thrum of what was born in the dark, all of what became of this trembling time, the husk of history becoming. You remember the feeling, the falling leaves, as civilizations bloom from the wound of crimson heroes, the stubborn blood clinging to the ground. How it remembers the damp of their footsteps, the sound of sea foam singing at the shore, the whisper of arrival. We bleed, we remember, we rise. Thank you. Meera Das Gupta served as the 2020 United States Youth Poet Laureate. She's the youngest person yet to earn the title and the first Asian American. And about this poem, the poet said that she wanted to create a piece rooted in revolution, with the spike in anti-Asian violence within the United States, which has a long history of oppression of Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Her poem calls directly to the past in its reminiscence of Angelo, but also realizes what rising from the ashes looks like in the modern day. Youth poet laureates represent the next generation of writers and activists, often addressing pressing issues such as climate change, social justice, and identity through their poetry. And while I've had the opportunity to shine the light on some extraordinary youth poets amongst us through my work and projects, both in person and virtual, tonight I wanted to especially highlight these voices of youth, not only for who they are, for what their work is, but also for the impactful programs they represent. Programs like the National Youth Poet Laureate Program in the US, as well as the Youth Poet Laureate Program started by many cities in partnership with them, with Urban World, with the public libraries and the Poets Laureate. All of them have really helped amplify these young voices, offering platforms to speak and publish their work. So, along with the youth, I also wanted to recognize the Youth Poet Laureate programs and initiatives like the Lights On After School, which provide valuable benefits to the students in so many ways. On that note, I'm thrilled to welcome Mara Grimes from San Mateo County Office of Arts and Culture and Victoria Macbelang, the Daly City Youth Poet Laureate Program Coordinator, both of whom who are here tonight with us and who have been instrumental in guiding and nurturing the voices of young poets through their work. I wanted to take a moment to thank both of them for their work in supporting the youth poets and for being here tonight. Thank you so much, Victoria and Mara. And if you'd like to take a moment, I just wanted to check in with you if you would like to share a few words with us before we move on.
You go, Victoria.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me here and for inviting the youth poets. It's just great to see so much support for them. I'm glad to see a lot of people here in the event. And, I think poetry is such a wonderful way to engage our teens. It's they're notoriously difficult to engage. So the fact that we have these three young people here right now, I know they're all super busy. They do a lot. That's how they got this position. And taking the time out of their evening to come here and share with us is, I'm just very grateful to you for providing providing and for them for showing up.
I'd like to echo what Victoria said. We also have another arts commissioner, San Mateo County Arts Commissioner, hiding amongst us too. Lois Freed is also an arts commissioner. And Olivia, who's going to come up later, is one of our new youth arts fellows, as well as being a wonderful poet. I just want to thank you for the opportunity that you're giving these youth and to really spotlight what's going on in Daly City, the program that Victoria sponsors through her organization is really outstanding. And I also want to mention that coming from that program was Chloe Chow, who is the California Youth Poet Laureate. So we've got a lot of youth poets happening in Daly City and other parts of the county, but hopefully we can grow it a little bit more now. So thank you so much for the opportunity for featuring these youth.
Thank you so much, Mara and Victoria, for sharing your thoughts with us. And as Victoria put it so right, notoriously hard to get. They are, yes, but they are here and can't wait to hear them. And I'm thrilled to introduce a trio of remarkable Daly City youth poets tonight, Olivia Veroy, Julian Ozaeta, and Maxwell Espinola. It makes me very happy to be able to be in dialogue with them and bring them to you as part of this October special poetry spotlight. I'll be making a slight change to our usual featured segment format. Instead of poems and conversation intertwined, I'll be inviting each of my co-features to read first, and afterward, I'll lead a brief group discussion with some questions for them. As for the reading order, Olivia will start us off, followed by Julian, and Max will bring us to a close. So, moving on, I'll introduce each of them, beginning first with Olivia Veroy. A 15-year-old poet from California and Daly City's Youth Poet Laureate from last year, she enjoys playing the guitar, crocheting, and Wes Anderson movies. She likes writing about oncoming trains and things that probably once made her cry. What a lovely introduction that is, Olivia. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Olivia, and today I'll be reading two poems. They're titled I Left My Heart in the Spaces Between the Train Tracks and To Be a Brown Girl. So, first up will be I Left My Heart in the Spaces Between the Train Tracks, and it's a poem centered around growing up and kind of spaces where I feel I've lost a part of myself. I left my heart in the spaces between the train tracks. The thing is, I'm in love with you, but I don't know where I put my heart. Leaving it behind somewhere in between the secondhand bookshops and overpriced vintage stores on Valencia. No, perhaps I dropped it earlier in the cold sand on Ocean Beach. I can still remember how we walked to Safeway in our flip-flops and ocean wet hair. I spent a couple dollars for the packaged hot dogs and marshmallows we roasted over the campfire. We held them too close to the flames and burned our fingers, but it felt like being alive. And I left something behind in the tiny Chinese hair salon, nestled between a boba shop and a run-down dim sum place on a street where I feel like I belong. Where the lady cutting my hair tells me I look like my mother, even though I am a carbon copy of my father. She doesn't mention how I get my hair cut shorter and shorter each time I am there. There isn't going to be anything left to cut soon. I never looked as good as you do with short hair, but it's something. No, I lost it in second grade back in Boston, taking the tea to the museum in the dead of winter. I dropped it in the space between the concrete platform and the train, tracking gray, dirty snow with my snowshoes. Maybe it's better there, living among the trash and the rats on the subway tracks. Listen, you know the sound an oncoming train makes? That's what I really mean when I say I love you. And then, thank you. And then my second poem is titled To Be a Brown Girl, and it details kind of my experiences and outlook as a girl and a person of color and a Filipino immigrant to the United States. To be a brown girl. To be a brown girl is slippers, not shoes in the house. To be a brown girl is to have to explain why you eat with a spoon and fork. To be a brown girl is church on Sundays. To be a brown girl is to have a last name that people never quite pronounce right. To be a brown girl is being 9 years old again, while a white boy tells you that your nose looks weird because it is flat, flatter than the pointy European nose he deems normal. To be a brown girl is to hold the hands of papaya whitening soap and spray tan and want neither. To be a brown girl is for your mother to hear fried rice while walking in your own neighborhood, the street over from your house. To be a brown girl is to know you will never be American or Filipino enough. To be a brown girl is to be 5, lying awake at night, wondering what it would be like to have blonde hair and blue eyes, wondering what it would be like to truly belong. Thank you.
Olivia, do you have more poetry to share with us, or is that it? Okay. Great. Loved both those pieces that you shared. It was fantastic. I love how they hold on to the theme of belonging. And I remember that To Be a Brown Girl, that was one of your poems that was awarded the silver medal for the National Scholastic Awards. Is that right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Congratulations on that. And I really enjoyed your reading of the poems. I'd like to encourage everyone to unmute for a quick sec so we can make our applause, our praises heard for our wonderful youth poet here.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Very nice. I should be so talented.
Beautiful. Thank you.
We continue, we continue.
Nicely done,
And
Olivia.
still we rise.
Thank you so much, everyone. What a fantastic kickoff to the evening. I remember, Olivia, you reading in person before at the Youth Poet Laureate commencement ceremonies and in our own Belmont for the Poetry 360 event held in celebration of National Poetry Month. And each time I've noticed how your words have a remarkable way of capturing emotions and experiences. That was a brilliant reading. I'm eager to hear more about your plans as a poet during the Q&A, but thank you so much for sharing with us for now. Let me introduce our next amazing featured youth. Julian Ozaeta is the first runner-up of the 2024-25 Daly City Youth Poet Laureate, a poet, artist, and student from Daly City, California, a senior in high school. He has explored his myriad passions in and outside of school, including his love for poetry. His work has been featured in his school's literary magazine since he was a freshman, winning the Poetry Prize as a sophomore. He was chosen for the magazine's editorial board in his junior year, and he has been a finalist for the Daly City Youth Poet Laureate program twice. Some of Julian's other pursuits are playing the clarinet and saxophone, singing, and playing volleyball, exploring nature, and traveling. Wonderful. So many things and such talent. Welcome, Julian.
Thank you. Yes, again, I'm Julian, a Daly City youth poet. And tonight I'll be sharing 4 poems. They're short in length, but again, all of these poems were written this year, and 3 out of the 4 were in response to prompts during month-long writing challenges. One of the challenges was in April, and then the other one was in July, sort of a more personal one. But my first poem will be Green. I will explain or give a little more context between the poems, but my first poem I'm going to be sharing today or tonight is entitled Green Hour. Green Hour. It wasn't even sunny out, not bright nor warm, nor formally inspiring yet, and I caught the greens of our younger dog's eyes in a slice of concentrated light. Spilling north, we curved past the fold of fog and rolled into lucid, vivid plains, rolled windows down till the Venusian air was holding us by the neck. I couldn't stand even, for by the time we'd laid our skin out on the deck, the heat had turned ruthlessly gold. In the wash of rural blue, the beat of my heart simmered softly. The summer woke starving guts and carving tongues, and apples and apricots. Teeth to sweetness, and I was discerning citrus and soil. Hand at the orange tree, hand in the blackberry bush, hand on the olive branch. Handed my share by this craving sun, bronzed breathless, hour after green hour. And that was in response to a prompt, fruit. And I sort of mentioned fruit throughout that poem. And that I wrote that in July, and it's based off like a summer afternoon I spent with family. And my next poem that I will be sharing is entitled Evening. And I wrote this on a school immersion trip that I went on over the summer in June. And it was 2 weeks of not having any technology. And it was just a group of students from my school. We went up to Tacoma, Washington, and the main themes of that immersion were disability and inclusion. But the poem I'm about to read is mainly focused on like the retreat portion of the immersion experience that I had. And it's mostly about the quiet moments during that retreat part. And again, it's entitled Evening. Evening. Night fell and I pretend we're quiet. Still, we keep rustling and wrestling because we swore by it. But I shouldn't try too hard to define what only may be. It's my stretch of leaves before me, letting loose and letting be. So once they call for the meal to fill our summered bellies, my feet slide through gravel, then grass, then next to yours in an unlit room. We're creaking up stairs and slopes and collapse into silence, true silence, like all of us have been swept into our separate corners of green. You on the weary gate, you on the hardwood floor, at the table back, then and there, I had strung myself to your path in the weeds, but then tilted tension into a door frame, the window panes reflecting the half of my face we've yet to know. And thank you. And my next poem is entitled Portrait of My Nights, open parentheses, late and ever letting, close parentheses. And this was in response to the prompt portrait from the April writing challenge that I partook in. And it's centered around my experience of working or studying late at night throughout the school year. Portrait of my nights, late and ever leaden. The shadows dissolve and the sky begs to carve memorials behind my eyes as I reel in the red moon's rise. The bulb strikes this room in nauseous golden bloom. Half light flickers at my yawn, the crack of my back or of dawn. But the hours flee and surge, and darkness sings like a dirge. The decay is a covenant, and I remain alone, a revenant. My sight shivers and sighs, crouched and desk-ridden. To daybreak, night delivers me, late and ever leaden. Thank you. And my final poem is in the form, or is a kind of poem called an Ars Poetica, which is basically a poetic explanation or a meditation on poetry itself, the art of poetry itself. And this is in response to the prompt, A Recurring Dream, that I responded to in April. Ars Poetica. We are sculptors of the handheld heart, sculptures of feeling and forgetting through ink-tipped and wit-dipped fingers. Our clay is derived from the weight of light in lungs, the spoiling of milk and the garden grown, the words you do not let fall in your wrinkled recurring dream. Let us feed the night to our sharpest suffering in need of a scalpel with lines in every margin, because the poem sleeps behind knowing ribs. So we learn yet of ourselves and turn ripe with reckoning and speak like we are something akin to the deliverance of you to yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. Let's unmute and hear it for Julian. Take a moment to share kind praise with our talented youth here.
Very nice, Julian.
Very.
Really wonderful. I feel like I need to slink away.
Beautiful imagery.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with Terida. Simply superb. You bring such fresh imagery and perspectives to your work, Julian. And I really liked the composure in your delivery, that you gave us a peek into how the poems came to you through these prompts. I could never tell that this was your first formal reading your poems at length, that is, besides the commencement ceremonies. But well done. You did a fantastic job. And I hope you will continue to share your voice and your poetry. I'll circle back to you soon. But for now, you can sit back and relax and enjoy the rest of this evening.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Coming to our final featured poet for tonight, please join me in welcoming another incredible youth voice, Maxwell Espinola, the 2024-25 Daly City Youth Poet Laureate. From the class of 2025, he is the first all-student body president at his school in Daly City, bassist for the school rock band, and is a writer for the school newspaper. A passionate political activist and musician, his poems explore themes surrounding social justice, love, and self-discovery. In his free time, he enjoys writing fantasy stories, watching classic films, and playing mahjong. Isn't that fantastic? I love that bio. Welcome, Max.
Hi everyone, I'm very happy to be here today with you all. And I'll be presenting to you 4 poems. All of which I submitted for the Youth Poet Laureate program across the last 2 years. So to start, this first poem is called Revisions, and it explores the ideas of activism and how they collide with capitalism, as well as the whitewashing of history and how trauma is distorted to further certain goals and agendas. So here it is. Receiving, new meat for processing, fresh milk for sterilizing, new thought for filtering, parsing, sin and sacrilege, violence and sexuality, bits of brain under a soldier's boot, impurity and disobedience. Encoding, doubt and paranoia, nonsensical philosophies, blemishes on our spotless history, uncomfortable truths, unmarketable heroes, unsuitable dreams. Rendering, aspirations that won't break the mold, outspoken inaction, disruption, investor-friendly, toothless lions at the zoo. Uploading, trauma, distorted, diluted, and weaponized. Thank you. For my next poem, I'll be sharing with you all a piece that I wrote almost 2 years ago. This was for my first submission for Youth Poet Laureate, and it explores themes regarding imposter syndrome, which is something I personally struggled with in my journeys as a poet. So it's called Fraud. I am a thief, I must confess, of certain things I don't possess, not cash or gold that might impress, but hearts and souls I oft express. See, I paint my skies with alien hues, in shades of blue I never knew, and while with life they seemed imbued, the views I drew were but a ruse. Although I sing of melancholy, breaking hearts and lovers' follies, I've never swallowed tears that salty, or witnessed yet a thing enthralling. And though I sculpt the heart that aches, that writhes in pain and human angst, it seems I've always lacked the taste for dishes baked in flames of hate. A fraud I am, I must admit, a theft of feeling I commit, some mundane truths I just omit. To steal lives, I'll never quit. But maybe just a bit's legit, that touch of self that barely fits. So while I've not seen all life's gifts, my sunlit dreams I shall submit. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank
Thank
you.
you. My next poem was inspired by a history of jazz class that I took at Skyline College, and how that made me realize something about self-discovery. The title of this poem is called Bebop. Bebop. His fingers dance across the keys, but it's his soul that sings. Staccato sharp shooting shockwaves to your heart, forcing your eyes closed, lips pursed into disgusting bliss. He'll stumble sometimes, strike ebony instead of ivory, splash red paint where the skies should be, send sounds that break free from the bass, miss the beat of wild drums, and screech louder than saxophones. But then he'll stumble again and again and again, until his song takes flight, until missteps become part of his dance, until detours become part of his journey, until the road paved in ink before him is nothing but a suggestion. Thank you. For my last poem, this is a very personal one. It's about a personal philosophy of mine, and it's about breaking the preconceptions that you deal with in your day-to-day life, and not just exploring new things, but seeing existing ones for in a new light, I would say. And that has helped me in many ways, from poetry to exploring new opportunities that I would have never thought of previously. So here it is. It's called First Impressionism. Sometimes it's best to forget, to close your eyes and open them for the first time, to blink and find that the sky isn't a sea of stars, it's one with the ocean. Blink, and her eyes aren't deep blue, they're shallow diamonds. Blink, and the mirror isn't shattered, it makes a fine mosaic. Blink, and you aren't running west, you're racing the sunset. Blink, and the chimneys aren't smoking, they're exhaling in a cold world. Blink, and the trees aren't shedding, they're crying tears of orange. Blink, and the shadows aren't layers, they're shelters for the forgotten. Blink, and time no longer ticks, it swings from side to side. Blink, and stars don't shoot, but they can still slip between your fingertips. Blink, and the edge of the path isn't the end, it's the start of a road not taken. Thank you.
Wonderful.
What a brilliant reading. Please unmute yourselves, everyone. Let's give some love to Max as well.
Yes.
Max,
Yes,
that's
beautiful.
amazing.
Max, I heard you read Blink, your first impressions at the September Fest, and it was just lovely. I'm so happy I got to hear it again.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Now I know I need to slink away.
Yes. Beautiful.
Just wonderful, Maxwell.
The blink, the timing, and the imagery. Astounding. it's so emotional, very emotional.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing your thoughts. Fabulous reading, Max. I love the range and rhythm of your poetry. The repetitions work so well. You have a very good understanding. Being a musician or taking interest in music, it shows in your language as well. And I love the different topics and themes you've explored and how beautifully you've expressed them all. Your poetry really has a powerful impact, and it's inspiring to see how you express complex feelings with such clarity and creativity. Kudos to that. Well, all three of you have a unique voice and one that is really essential. And your poetry has the ability to inspire and uplift others. Since I've heard you before, I can see the evolution in you as a poet in the community. And before we move on to the Q&A, I'd like to take a moment to see here if our dear poet and the SMC Arts Commissioner, Lois Freed, would like to say something to our youth.
Well, I am just speechless tonight to hear these beautiful poets bring us such joy in just a very short period of time. Every piece you shared was just filled with depth and emotion, as someone has said. And I just thank you so much for being here and taking the time to join the poetry community in San Mateo County. Thank you so much for that. And keep creating.
Thank you, Lois. Thank you. It's always encouraging to hear what the commissioners and so many people who are working in the offices, how they support the youth poets, and it's very encouraging to hear from them. Thank you so much for sharing. Let's get right into our conversation now. Thank you so much for spotlighting all the poets, David. Last year, in April, the Vice Youth Poet Laureate of Santa Clara, Sarah Muhammad, was one of my features. And I loved how she had expressed herself when talking about her role as a youth poet working in the community, where she said that the transition from making your own work to sharing it to being the arbiter of someone else's sharing. She said, I'm grateful that this is part of my journey as a young poet. And Olivia, Julian, and Max, I'm curious to know what inspired you to write poetry. Also, tell me a little about your journeys as a youth poet, the challenges, if you faced any, and how you overcame those, and how has all of that helped you in finding your own agency, your own leadership, your own voice. Olivia, would you like to go first?
Yeah, so I guess I started writing poetry to kind of process like my feelings and emotions, but it kind of blossomed into like being also able to share like my perspective and like marginalized like voices and kind of shed light to that. And yeah, I think I've changed a lot throughout my poetry journey, like starting off when I was just writing poetry for a school assignment to becoming one of the Daly City YPLs to this new opportunity as a San Mateo Youth Arts Fellow. And I think I've really kind of found my style in writing and gotten a lot more confidence speaking to people, interacting with my community, and meeting other artists, as well as sharing my work.
It's great to hear. Julian and Max, how are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, for my journey with poetry, I think starting in middle school and like up to my early years of high school, I was already like very interested in literature and sort of writing, but more towards like fiction and short stories rather than poetry. But entering high school and sort of, yeah, just the progression through English classes, especially because that was those English classes were really the first time I really wrote poetry and like really thought of it as an art form, but also like an art form and a way of expressing yourself. So I think just that, like, the catalyst of those like assignments like continued or like pushed me during those years to sort of explore the art of poetry. And for me, it definitely grew to be some just a mechanism for me to to express myself in on personal terms, but also to definitely experiment just with like word usage and other like devices.
Right.
But I think my journey up to now, it's definitely been a lot of listening and learning from other poets, especially like renowned poets that I've read like like in published books, but also like the work of my peers, because just like reading through the literary magazine at my school was really inspiring for me. And I think now at this point, I've sort of been motivated to bring my voice and words to the community by sharing work like with this event, and also just being more articulate, or being more able to articulate how I want to contribute. And I did recently become spoken word club president at my school, so I'm hoping to find opportunities for that community at my school to grow.
Wonderful, Julian. Really happy to hear that. Yes, Max, tell us.
Yeah, so my journey was pretty similar to Julian's in a way. I didn't really write poetry until high school, but before then I was, very interested in literature. But also like that musical background, like hip hop music really was definitely it's definitely like a bridge for me to get there. But just sort of being exposed to more poetry in my freshman and sophomore years, and actually getting to write poems made me realize that there's just like so much potential for what you can achieve with, playing around with language and using all sorts of imagery in your works. And it really just opened my eyes. And not only that, but this great program we have here, it opened a lot of doors for me, and gave me a lot of insight into my community. And I'm very grateful for that, for those opportunities. But yeah.
I'm really glad to hear that. And listening to all three of you talking about your journeys, I also see that how you've really found your own voice, or you are cultivating it, which is absolutely amazing. And as part of those journeys, also, I would like to hear about how certain things that you worked on your own, or with the support of extracurricular activities, talking about which we are recognizing the Lights On After School initiative tonight. And just about a little about the Lights On After School. It was an initiative launched in October 2000, the only nationwide event celebrating after school programs and their important role in the lives of children, families, and communities. And the After School Alliances is what organizes the Lights On After School annually, to draw attention to the many ways after school programs support students by offering them opportunities to learn new things such as science, community service, robotics, sports, taekwondo, poetry, and basically discovering new skills And I'll share a link to that in the chat for those who'd like to know more about it. But what I wanted to hear from the three of you is, as students, you must have been part of the after school programs throughout the years. In what ways do you think they help create creative opportunities for youth? And do you think they impacted your own growth in any way as a poet, even if indirectly? Max, would you
Yeah,
like to go first?
yeah, I can start. So for me personally, I think after school programs like really helped me because especially after I was in 8th grade during COVID. So I didn't really get a lot of that. The transition, from middle school to high school was like socially, it was very difficult for me. And that was in part mostly due to the pandemic. And
Right.
but engaging in these after school programs um really helped me get my confidence back because it helped me um engage with peers that had similar interests and with me and um you know showed me that I had the capacity to create these great things in a variety of areas. But yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Max. Julian and Olivia?
With regard to after school programs in general, I sort of adding on to what Max has said about just the opportunities that they provide for young students and youth in general. I feel that after school programs, it's sort of an extension beyond the maybe, yeah, obviously at face value, it's an extension of um, the school day, your normal classes, but then it can sort of take you further and sort of give you those opportunities to um, sort of peer into like other areas where you might experience belonging, where you might experience passion. And I think, yeah, they definitely help you dive into those interests, whether they be like very like you've had the interest for a long time, or if it's something completely new. And specifically for me, I've at my school um I've taken part in a variety of after school programs, not necessarily focused on poetry, but definitely with arts. And those programs have definitely just opened a way for me to improve on maybe the talents I've like grown to have, but also just like sharing a widely diverse community of talents and skill, and that's really helped me like sort of move forward with and learning like move forward with a more um, comprehensive and wider perspective.
Wonderful. Yes, Olivia, tell us.
Yeah, so like Julian and Max have said, I definitely think after school programs are like such a vital experience for like students and children as they grow up. And after school programs can like open so many doors to new like talents or hobbies or interests that you like never might have even thought about before. And like a lot of the times there's no like payment barrier or anything. So a lot of people can access like all these wonderful things. Like for me, I've been in a bunch of after school programs over the years, but like I was in one for Math Olympiad. I was in like my school's orchestra, which showed me kind of my love for playing clarinet, and like various sports teams. That helped me like build a sense of community and find a new hobby. And like I think those are really great that just help you find new things that you love and like find a community.
Thank you so much for sharing, all of you. It's wonderful to hear your perspectives and insights on all of these programs that are offered around institutions. So it's fantastic to hear all that you had to share. One of my final questions to you is, what do you hope people take away from your own poetry? And since the 2025-26 Youth Poet Laureate application is now open, what's one advice you have for teen poets who may be aspiring to be the next Daly City Youth Poet Laureates? Julian, would you like to go first this time?
Yeah, I can respond to what was the first part of your question again? Sorry.
What do you hope people take away from your poetry?
In response to that question, I think something I've been wrestling with a lot more is a poet's duty to respond to and address the needs and sort of the needs of a community, but also to address their own sort of self-perceptions and like their internal desires as a poet and an artist. And that's like something that's been like something I've been trying to reflect about. Basically, is a poet supposed to be accessible, or is a poet supposed to be authentic, and authentic to that themselves? And I think I guess that's something that I want people to know about my own voice in poetry. Just it can be very personal. I think that's just a main takeaway. And then some advice for, I think, teen poets, teen youth poets, would be to just consume art and poetry, and because I think it definitely broadens your view of what is possible, but it can inform your decisions when creating art and writing poetry. And yeah, I think just continuing to read and listen and experience is something I advise teen poets to do.
That's wonderful advice, Julian. I really like what you said about reflecting on to be accessible and authentic to yourself. Beautifully put there. And I'm really glad that being a poet, it is making you think these thoughts and to introspect more and to reflect more on what your role is as a maker of poetry. Great to hear that, Julian. Thank you. Olivia?
So for the first part of the question, and like what I want people to take away from my poetry, say that like for me, I try, a lot of my poetry is written from like my own perspective and like marginalized perspectives, from things I relate to personally, like who I am as a woman, who I am as an immigrant, who I am as a person of color. And with these poems I write, I try to raise like underheard voices to the light. And I want people through my poetry to feel like that their struggles are heard and they're felt and they're not alone and that they're seen. Yeah, and I think also like activism plays a big part in that too. Like I want my poems to evoke thought and action. I hope youth poets after me, their work will also do the same. And for the second part about the advice, I'd say just really write what you're passionate about and write what makes you happy and what gets you going. Like I think the most beautiful art someone create is something they had fun making. And I don't think poets should like have to feel bound or restricted to a certain set of themes. Like I really think poetry can be about anything.
Perfect. What a beautiful advice, Olivia. I love that. What you said that, yeah, you should pursue what you really love and shouldn't feel the pressure of doing something for this just this, for the sake of doing it. You really mean it and enjoy that process. And I can see that you are enjoying yours. It's wonderful to hear all that you had to share, Olivia. Thank you. Max, tell us.
Yeah, so I think what I would like people to garner from my own work is that um when people like try to tell their own stories, a lot of times they get caught up in, you know, the idea that they're not an interesting person. And I would vastly disagree with that, because because a lot of times they think, oh, I haven't gone through anything myself. I haven't struggled with anything yet. What will I even write about? But there is so much more to yourself, like within your mind, than what you've already gone through. You can talk about your dreams, your aspirations, your identity as a whole. Like there's just so much more to pull from, and you can you can still be very authentic, like Julian said, with your own work, and but still at the same time, um, I mean, yeah, you can be true to yourself and um, you know, tell a great story at the same time without relying on like, you know, experiences. But yeah, and also my advice for future poets, I think, would be definitely immerse yourself in the works of others. Um, Coming to events like this one, you know, will really just give you an idea of um, like more ways to express yourself, you know, vividly, and like maybe give you foresight into new themes that you may not have known about and you could be passionate about exploring. And that was definitely something that helped me personally. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Max. So what great thoughts there. All of you have such gems to share, especially the advice that you have for poets, for future poets, for aspiring poets. And you yourselves are still in that position, I believe, as you are aspiring to be at more platforms which give you that opportunity to share your work with the community, to be more aware of what is going around, and make changes where it matters the most, and make yourself heard where it matters the most. So it's absolutely brilliant, the kind of work that you have been doing as not only as youth poets, but also as students while pursuing your studies. There is so much more going on in your life. So I'm really glad how committed and dedicated and determined you are to make that change around yourself. Once again, thank you so much for being here and sharing your amazing work with us. I've really had a joy hosting you and listening to you, and I feel that your talent and passion truly lit up the room tonight. We appreciate the stories and perspectives you shared, and I hope you continue making poetry and sharing it with the community. And I'd also like to congratulate you on your accomplishments so far, and all the best for your journeys ahead. If you'd like to unmute for a brief moment to say something, please do that.
That's all I can say. You guys were brilliant, really lovely hearing you, and I wish you all of the greatest success in the future. I think you have brilliance among the three of you, and that we will be hearing great things from you.
Thanks for
Totally
sharing, Phil.
thankful. Yeah.
Thanks to
Totally.
all of you, and keep writing and reading.
Very thankful for the future.
I have a question.
Yes.
Your name is Monica, right? How do we like basically write poems? Do we have to read a book and read it, or how do we do it?
I'll get to that very soon once we begin our open mic segment. So I'll respond to that in some time.
First time joining a teen poet, so want to become one. I know a friend who writes poems a lot. He graduated around this time of year. So if you could explain what is poetry and all those things.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Glad you could join in tonight. All right. Max, Julian, and Olivia, do you have any last words to share with us?
I think I just want to say thank you to everyone who's attended. I think, yeah, this is pretty much my first formal reading of like poetry, and I think all the work that I shared tonight was, I've never read it to anyone before, but yeah, I think this was an amazing opportunity, and I loved sharing my voice.
I'd also like to say that there's so many talented poets and other individual artists around you, and it's very important that you go out and support them, attend events like this, and show them your love.
Yeah, like Julian and Max have said, I just wanted to thank everyone so much for their support and all their love. It really means a whole bunch. Thanks so much.
Lovely to hear those words. Thank you so much, Max, Julian, and Olivia. And just as a reminder, we'll be moving to our open mic segment now, and I hope you can stick around for a while. But if you need to get to your schoolwork and can't stay all the way, we understand. So feel free to let me know in the chat when you need to go. And with that, we are going to stop recording this segment. Those of you who are in the Zoom room, please stay online for the open mic segment of the evening. To the YouTube audience, thanks for joining in and hope to see you for next month's virtual Belmont Poetry Night. Good night.